There are a lot of videos that I'm typically really excited to shoot here for the channel. This isn't necessarily one of them. That's because prices on vinyl records are going to continue to go up. In fact, just recently, Universal Music Group announced a serious increase across almost 2,500 titles. Is inflation about to sink the vinyl record industry? We will discuss on this episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you aren't local but you are in the US, you can shop online at ntxvinyl.com. Would love it if you would subscribe here to our YouTube channel or follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is inflation. As you would expect, the vinyl record industry, the music industry as a whole, is not immune to what is going on in the world right now. Prices are going up across the board, whether you're trying to fill up your car with a tank of gas or whether you're going to the grocery store. It doesn't really matter. Everything is being impacted, and vinyl is no different. The biggest news that was recently announced came from Universal Music Group, which is one of the largest record labels or conglomerates of record labels in the world, housing not only Universal but also UME and Republic and Def Jam and Virgin and Verve and UMG Nashville, an entire web of record labels. They announced a huge price increase. They sent out a list of almost 2,500 titles, many of their top titles, and the price increase is pretty substantial. Some titles are bumping up $1 or $2. Yes, that's kind of could be expected. There are other titles that are bumping up $10. We're not talking about, limited edition stuff or record store date stuff, or we're talking about catalog titles. We're talking about Abbey Road going from $26 to $35. The Black Crowes Shake Your Money Maker going from $22 to $32. Lana Del Rey Born to Die going from $22 to $32. Dr. Dre's 2001 going from $25 to $35. Badlands by Halsey going from $22 to $32. Jimmy World Bleed America from $22 to $32. Nirvana Unplugged going from $30 to $45. You get the idea. It impacts every genre. It impacts low-level records as far as developing artists or really established artists. It's across the board. And again, it's a huge list of 2,500 titles. Will other record labels, will Warner, will Sony, will they follow suit? My gut says probably they will, and it's very frustrating, but it's the reality of where we are at. So what does that mean? Well, it means you as a record buyer, if you're gonna buy new vinyl, it's gonna cost you more. That's just the reality of it. That doesn't mean your record store is at fault, doesn't mean the distributor's at fault, doesn't mean, Universal's at fault, everyone's at fault. It's just the world we live in. There's no way to get around it with the current state of things, right? So let's talk about the reality of this. If you're a consumer, you go into a record store or you're shopping online and you see a record that's $35, maybe it's a single LP, again, maybe it's Abbey Road and now it's $35, right? That can be very frustrating because you're thinking this used to be a $20, $25 record. Well, a lot of people will inherently just blame the record store and say, this store overcharges, this store overprices, which of course can happen and does happen. But the reality is that record stores, NTX Vinyl included, have to buy records, new vinyl, from distributors. And when the prices go up at distributors, then the prices have to go up at record stores. It trickles all the way down and it impacts everybody, not only the consumer, yourself who's buying records, but me as a record store owner or any record store owner, when we go to make our weekly or purchases, of bulk albums to restock our shops, whether physical or online, we have to look at these prices and decide which titles do we want, which titles do we think a consumer is going to pay that much for. It gets really difficult when prices go up, and we have to get a lot more particular about what we buy and what we stock in our shops. So it creates a lot of complications. It creates issues issues in regards to cash flow for businesses. And it just, again, it kind of slows growth in general, which is the most frustrating part from my standpoint, because I'm seeing so much growth in the industry, so many new collectors getting involved and starting to experience vinyl for the first time. And this inevitably is going to be putting some people off. Vinyl was already expensive. You know, most people are used to streaming their music. In a lot of ways, you know, that's free, or it's $15 a month or something like that. Or if you want to have ads in it, then it's free, right? And so going from that to purchasing a copy of Abbey Road for $35, which used to be $20 or $25, can be really disheartening. And it's not just disheartening for you, it's disheartening for me as well. And I'm sure every other store owner who got the same email I did about this Universal price increase. And again, Universal, I'm just calling them out because they're the ones who just did this, but I expect that all other labels will probably follow suit because they have no choice, right? Because prices of labor have gone up, prices of gas have gone up to get the albums to us, prices of manufacture are going up, prices of storing vinyl, whether it's at a distribution warehouse or whether it's at local storage locations or whether it's at a physical shop where rent is going up. All of it affects the price, and we're all being affected equally, right? It's very frustrating. Do I think it's going to sink the vinyl record industry? I don't think it's going to sink it. I think it's going to really stunt the growth, and that sucks. Because over the past couple years, things have grown so quickly, and there has been so much interest in regards to vinyl, whether it be the hobby or collecting or just people wanting to listen to music on a physical format, right? There's been so much growth and so much excitement and energy behind it that I really fear that this type of thing is going to stunt the growth. I recently took a poll in my Facebook group, which is called Now Spinning. I'll put the link here. And it's anecdotal. It was, not thousands of people, it was a couple hundred people. And I asked if people were buying less records these days because of inflation and because of prices going up. And there was a pretty large percentage of people who said they have slowed down. That hurts. It really does. For every business owner, I'm just speaking from myself personally, but for every record store out there who's going to start to feel the impact of this, it really does hurt. And it's not just on new vinyl. You got to keep that in mind. That's the number one thing that people respond with is, I don't buy new vinyl then, just go to garage sales and go to thrift stores or just buy the used pre-owned stuff. Well, sure, if you can find it for real cheap at thrift stores and garage sales, absolutely pick it up. But as far as pre-owned vinyl is concerned at record shops, this is going to impact that as well, because if a record store has a certain amount of margin on an album, meaning they're making, let's say, $5 on a new album or something, which is pretty common, and they're used to selling a certain number of albums per week or month. Well, those numbers are now changing. The margin may stay the same, but you're going to sell a lot less because the albums are more expensive. How do you make up that profit? Well, you have to increase prices elsewhere. So vintage vinyl, pre-owned vinyl, used records, that's going to start going up too. It's already been going up because more collectors are getting involved, more eyeballs on the hobby, more people wanting it, supply and demand, etc. But now with the price increase on new vinyl, that's going to impact everything across the board. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen at every shop. You're not going to feel it right away. But over time, if this doesn't subside, if this doesn't stabilize, and if prices don't, maybe come back down at a certain point, then it will impact you. It will impact you long term, and it will impact the hobby long term, and that's really frustrating again. But I don't see a way around it. Like, I don't think that Abbey Road being now at $35 retail, all of a sudden, a year from now, they're going to go, let's lower it back down. Like, that's not the way this works. Once a precedent is set and once prices are established, they usually stay at least for a while until something crashes, until something falls apart because just simply, people aren't buying enough to even sustain the industry. And that's the scary part. I don't think it's going to happen next month or next year. I think long term, that's where the concern comes in, because again, if Universal's doing this, that means Sony and Warner, it's going to happen there too. It's going to have to start to happen at the independent labels. It's going to have to start happening at the artist level. It's going to impact everyone. This is not, not a one-off, in my opinion. It's no different than if you look at the concert industry and look at what is happening there in regards to ticket prices and what Ticketmaster has done with dynamic pricing. A lot of people just blame the artist and they say, why is this artist artists charging so much to get into their concerts? Well, the reality of that, the artist has so little control, no different than the price of their record. Any new artist these days, or any artist who's putting out a new record, whether they're established or not, they have very little control over how much to charge for their record. That's just the reality of it. The record label is in charge of a lot of that, and then they're at the mercy of the broader pricing structure and how that has all developed. And in this case, it's going in the wrong direction. But again, that's simply the world we live in, and so it's frustrating. Are you feeling this? Are you seeing prices go up? I think you probably are. I'm hearing it. Unfortunately, they're going to keep going up. It's something that I'm definitely going to keep a pulse on as information continues to flow, and if more of these announcements come down from other labels, because it's certainly going to impact my store, not only our physical locations, but our online shop and everything we do, again, in regards to pre-owned records, and we sell t-shirts and things like that. It's going to impact everything that goes on within a small business. That's the scary part about inflation, and that's where everyone just has to kind of buckle down and hold on for the ride. Spread your money around if you can, be smart with it, and if you're going to continue to buy records, be smart of where you buy and who you support, because it's really going to come down to survival of the fittest in a lot of ways. And not to go back to the discussion of whether or not you should be purchasing at big box stores, this is another reason why it's incredibly important to support independent retailers, not just record shops, but any independent restaurants or boutiques, whatever it may be, because they don't have the bankroll. They don't have the backing of massive corporations that can float them over time. They're on a cash basis in most circumstances. And something like this, even just this universal price increase, affects that cash flow, and that really trickles down and can impact a small business a lot faster than it does a large business, large corporation, right? So that's kind of the scary part. And again, just something that, as this was announced, I've been thinking about over the last week, and I started kind of polling that Now Spinning group, like I mentioned, and got some really good feedback there, and a lot of dislike for prices going up, obviously, but also a lot of good discussion around what it means, and are people going to stop buying? Are people slowing down? So yeah, that's kind of what I'm here to ask of you as a YouTube viewer watching this video. Have you slowed down? Are you planning to slow down? Have you even thought of slowing down when you go and fill up your car, your truck, the tank of gas, and it's twice as expensive as it was 6 months ago? Does that mean you're buying 1, 2, or 10 less records this month? My gut says it probably does, and this price increase is only going to make that worse. Thanks for watching. As always, this has been a completely depressing episode of talking about records. I'm gonna have to shoot the next video with something completely different that is on the up and up, because this one wasn't very fun, but still enjoy talking about it. It's an industry I love, and I'm gonna continue to be involved with regardless of what happens. So stick around the channel, watch some more videos. Really appreciate the support as always. Love to hear your comments, love to hear your feedback. Keep them coming, and we'll see you again next time on Talking About Records.